Hi, my name's Nathan Kadish. I'm a director on the board of Green Canopy. I'm losing my voice, apologies. Bolt Bus did it to me. And I'm here today with my esteemed colleague, Bettina von Hagen, who's going to tell you a little bit more about climate-smart forestry. Bettina is a leader in the impact investing world. She's been doing this for a couple decades now. And I welcome her to the stage to talk to us about a lot of the issues that Aaron brought up, but more specifically, how trees are important to this region and forests more specifically.
So, who's depressed about climate change? Who thinks about it every day? Gets a feeling at the pit of their stomach that things are not going the way they want? Come on, hands. Who's excited about climate change? Right. Let's talk about that, because I want to talk about, first of all, I want to give you some bad news. Then I want to give you some good news. And I want to give you some really great news. Is that okay? All right. Yeah. So, all right. So first for the bad news. Johan Rockström is from the Stockholm Climate Institute, and he, others, take your pick, are about how we are racing into the Anthropocene, out of the Holocene, into some new geological era of human-caused climate change, of climate chaos and climate refugees and all the stuff that makes your stomach hurt. And there are 9 planetary conditions that take us into the Anthropocene, and we've already violated 3 of them. Climate change is one of the 9. So this is why I'm excited about climate change. Because we've been on this path towards this destiny of Anthropocene for decades, right? And it's climate change that is capturing our attention now and making you feel the way you are. And the other side of climate change is that everything that we need to do to combat climate change, and you've heard some of the solutions from some of the prior speakers, about houses that actually are restorative, the incredible community that Aaron described that I want to be a part of. All of the solutions are right here, and I'm glad that Kevin's here, because Project Drawdown is like such. Who has read or looked or seen Project Drawdown? Okay. So this is the flip side of it, right? Which is that all of the solutions that we need are right in front of us. And it's not just that those solutions, right? It's not just that those solutions will get us to draw down, which is when atmospheric carbon actually starts declining. It's that they stimulate a world that is better. Because it's not just about the climate, right? It's about social equity, it's about distribution of wealth, it's about how we relate to each other, it's the feelings of loneliness and estrangement, it's about how our cities are organized and how transportation works. It's about all of that. And the good news is that climate change could be the stimulus, not just for addressing climate, but for addressing these fundamental ills of society that we know and we recognize, and that we know we can create a world that is happier, that is better for all of us. So that's the good news. And now, here's the great news. So Kevin, a quibble with your math is that you have temperate forests at number 12, okay? But actually, if you add all the forest strategies in there, forests are number 1, so I made that correction for you, okay? And so globally, forest strategies from a drawdown perspective, from sequestration, are number 1. And if they were number 1 globally, they most certainly are number 1 in the Pacific Northwest. We have the most stunning forests in the world. They suck carbon, they store carbon like no other ecosystem on Earth. And from 1 acre of forest, you can produce wood to build the houses that you want, you can produce clean, cold water, you can create conditions for salmon and bear and elk and all of the denizens of the forest. You can create recreation opportunities. You can create food foraging opportunities. We have absolutely spectacular forests. And the greater news is that strategies that we employ in forests, changing the way that we manage them, can double the carbon stores while at the same time yielding this broad range of benefits. And so we're going to talk a little bit about what that strategy looks like and then how you can participate in it. So first of all, forget China. We have the most amazing solar factory in the world right here in our forests. The needles and leaves are the solar receptors. The trunks and the branches are the batteries. These batteries last forever. These batteries last for hundreds of years. And they're actually useful batteries, you know? So actually, like if you want to not stop using it as a battery, you can slice it up and build a house, or you can build a fire. If a tree dies and battery falls over and it's still useful for another few hundred years. These are extraordinary solar factories. And as I said, they can produce and store, sequester and store, so absorb additional carbon and store, more carbon than any other ecosystem on Earth. And this is the system that surrounds us. There's a couple of things that built these forests, and it's important to, I think, to recognize them for a moment because they have implications for future management. Who has heard about the Wood Wide Web? So this story is beginning to go around. So we think of forests or we think of trees as competitors or competing for sunlight, but actually forests are master cooperators. Trees are joined with each other by this incredible underground network, the Wood Wide Web, which connects trees to each other, connects trees to ectomycorrhizal fungi, connects trees to other plants, and through that network, they transmit energy, they transmit minerals, they transmit information, they transmit hormones. Incredibly smart network. It has been demonstrated that trees can even recognize their own progeny in this network and differentially deliver resources to their own kin. So trees have this incredible communication network. They can alarm trees when there's disease. They can pass on carbon when a tree is stressed. So we have to start thinking about forests not in this competitive model that really is the root of sort of this short rotation, clear-cut model, which is the industrial paradigm of forestry, but really as these master cooperators. And that cooperation extends not just to trees and the underground roots, but to all the denizens of the forest. So like the first picture you've seen, right? Like the grizzly with their mouth open, waiting for the salmon, right? And you know the story of salmon. All of you know this story well. You know the story of salmon being born in mountain streams and going back out to the ocean and coming back and dying and all that stuff. But all of that was actually engineered by trees. Did you know that? And the reason is that like trees, like all plants, they need phosphorus and they need calcium and they need magnesium and they need nitrogen. And it turns out that nitrogen is the limiting factor in Pacific Northwest forests. So trees told salmon to go out in the ocean, go get some marine nitrogen, come back, have babies for the next generation and die. And then they told bears to be the gardeners. So these bears, as you can see, the next part of the story is they drag that carcass out into the woods. They eat that, and so do 136 other species. And one bear was followed, ate 700 salmon, and delivered 1,600 tons of nitrogen fertilizer into the forest. And in some parts of the forest, 70% of the nitrogen comes from these marine sources. So we're dealing with incredibly complex systems. And I have 1 minute and 15 seconds left. Jesus. Okay, we're gonna fast forward. So speed tour, yes, and then there's wood, and there used to be really big forests, and there was the cedar use, and then there was the era of cutting down the big forests, and now we're in the modern era. And this is a picture of actually our forest on the bottom, but on the upper, I guess your upper right, is the landscape you see around industrial forestry. It's short rotation, clear-cut forest. It's a super efficient way to get wood out of the forest, but it doesn't recognize these basic principles that we've just talked about forests as cooperators, and it is a system that has resulted in decline of salmon, spotted owl, marble murrelets, impacts on water, impacts on landslide, and so on. So the idea we have is, given the incredible capacity of these forests to grow carbon, and growing carbon also means growing timber, and to be harvested not at age 40, but at age 60 or 70 or 80, when they're still enormously productive, and follow some basic principles, what could we do? These are our principles. These are the principles of climate-smart forestry. Retention, rotation, reserves, resilience, and relationships. And I was going to explain what each of those things meant, but apparently I'm out of time. So you'll have to ask me later in the question section. But these are the building blocks of a type of forestry that is restorative. And with these principles, you can create a forest that will double the carbon, continue to supply high-quality wood to Green Canopy and Node and all the others. And with this, we created a company. We now have 75,000 acres under management in Washington, Oregon, and California. We've deployed about 100 million of assets in those forests, and we are in the process of that restoration and have delivered to our investors superior financial returns, and have delivered to our investors as well significant impact returns. And I'll show this slide because I know there's B Corp fans in the room and FSC fans in the room, and I hope you will join and partner with us in this journey. Thank you.